Hi, my name is Lance Kair, he, him, his, and this is a reading of my paper submitted to the University of Toronto Religious Studies Department for the conference Pessimism, Negativity, and Religion. The name of my paper is Philosophy, Religion, and Negation. A new time calls for a new theoretical venture. The usual method of exploring negativity through a polemic of thought and thought about, eminence and transcendence, is but one manner to discern a religious state of affairs. Another matter concerns an ability for honesty. Definitional intentions around an ability to make headway into religious theory seems founded in a postmodern theological stalemate. Some intellectual postures appear turning what is negative into positive space, even while other authors and activists of religion shape a positivity of world in terms of escape or denial. This essay highlights the conundrum of correlation involved with religion and its philosophical theory. The very terms of the discussion can be understood to exhibit the problem of a normative theoretical approach upon religion. Slavoj Zizek has given us insight into what ends might actually bring about, and a proper placement of either-or mentality is called for through the tool being of Graham Harman. This essay will explore the possibility that religion is a negativity which exhibits an in-itself object called the human being. Thus, a critique which attempts to recoup the losses accruing by various theoretical posts and postures evidences its own involvement in religious offense, as such procedures attempt to negate negation through further negation. I then consider if such philosophical approaches to the study of religion are not indeed psychological defenses which function to resist real solutions in the sense of mental health and religious affect. What are we talking about? Before critical theory, when we are still inside of philosophy, this must be the first question asked of any proposal. The answer to this question should be specific. It should answer with a definite object. For this essay, then, the answer to my first question is how philosophy is a religion. It is not how philosophy might be like a religion, but indeed why philosophy is a religion. This question goes to the very heart of the dilemma we seem to be facing in some areas of contemporary philosophy and the speculative approach to religion in particular. What is the relationship between a philosophy which proposes to be speaking about religion and religion itself? The first problem we encounter concerns the phenomenological center, what the authors from the Speculative Realism Conference in 2007, pretty sure it was 2007, have told us is the central thinker, or the Cartesian subject, which is associated with the Copernican revolution. This problem has been neatly termed by Quentin Meillassoux as correlationalism. But there is an internal problem with this notice. In order for the term to be referring to something substantial, often enough this substance must be set aside for the purpose of finding out what it really means. In other words, correlationalism itself is subject to the same condition it seems to be in, as an attempt to define itself out of. It is an example of a self-inscribing limit. I submit that the name correlationalism is merely another way to talk about the maxim of postmodern theory. There is nothing outside of discourse. A similar problem came out of that speculative realism conference. One could say that this basic issue forms the ground of the latest move about realism. The way it appears in the speculative realist domain is indeed the issue of the ground itself. No one at the conference could come up with a satisfactory answer for it, and they still are not really helping us. But I feel the most significant move was made by Graham Harman and his object-oriented philosophy. He simply and unapologetically told us that he will now talk about objects, which is a novel idea, but he has never really provided a satisfactory philosophical manner to step out of the gyre of phenomenal reductive experience. These are the same problems that have been recycling under different terms since the turn of the 20th century. But indeed, am I too kind to place such a recent allotment of philosophical latitude? We need only step back another 100 years or so and find Jacobi already predicting that the Kantian turn into the centrality of thought would find itself one day, eventually, established in nothing. Yet it might appear that no one could hear him. The philosophy of the synthetical a priori had to play itself out in time before anyone could hear Jacobi's argument resonate from centuries past. And we hear Mielisu ask, why did philosophy go down this road of the subject and not that of the object? Why is philosophy a religion? How might we establish the legitimacy of this claim? After we ask what the hell are we talking about, and we answer with the religion of philosophy, then we need to take notice of what philosophy conveys to thought. If there at some point was something that philosophy dealt with such that now it deals in nothing, then might we do worse than to ask what philosophy is dealing with, since apparently the answer of nothing was incorrect. And we look and we find people again analyzing philosophical things, the substance of philosophy, and finding out that indeed it was not nothing that we found, but a nothing that means something other than what nothing means. Was it Stephen Hicks who recently told us that Nietzsche was not a nihilist? How are we to interpret this move then? Which is to say, how could it be that a whole history around Nietzsche found his and as well Kierkegaard's nothingness if now we see that those very good minds which fell toward the same interpretation must not have been that good? We must pause, for we have really found another instance of the correlation of philosophical thinking. It is thought that is never questioned. If we truly are involved with philosophy, then we should not help ourselves when we cross the absurd idea that thinking itself is less an ontological given than it is a manner by which a particular agenda is upheld. Less a right of authentic subjectivity than an opportunity to be responsible. I am a counselor on a philosophical errand. I need not pursue sense with the same methodological rigors of what I shall suppose be called conventional philosophy, because it is exactly philosophy which is up for question. The object of the analysis is philosophy. Somehow we should guess the regular philosophers will cry foul. I suspect they will not let this pass. And my response is twofold. Where have I erred in the summary of our situation? And 2, please hold your comments until the end of the presentation. My answer arises because such rebuttals are indeed arising from the central phenomenal thinker, as though such a formation is a common and ubiquitous resource on one hand, and merely a particular definitional formation on the other, a formation which could change with the writing of a new sentence, according to the simple postmodernism. I do not question this contradiction, yet due to this quick response, I am also suggesting, insomuch as we are moving upon an unquestioned ontological premise called thought, that the corresponding answer to my proposal is a kind of Latourian pass of postmodern immanent motion. Namely, that philosophy as a name for a general mode of thinking is a dynamic process of the likes founded through the explicit implication of the continental stream of Kant, Hegel, Kierkegaard, Husserl, Heidegger, Whitehead, Sartre, Deleuze, Guattari, and a potentially infinite set of others, and not a static or containable thing that can thus be analyzed. For what we are analyzing philosophically is that which is presented, albeit through a certain materialistic dialectic, that which Jacques Derrida specifically tells us is discourse. The short of the problem is how to find a parameter to something which is understood to have no parameters. I take Heidegger's formulation of Dasein as it is, after we understand the significance of an argument Graham Harman makes in his book Tool Being. To wit, the proper and responsible issue is no longer the debate between what is ready to hand and what is present at hand. We might recall here Carol Gilligan's argument of her book, A Different Voice, against what she correctly identifies as a selective and myopic project of defining a proper scheme of moral development. She, as I, do not call for another conventional polemical engagement of justice, of who can make the better case. On the contrary, the polemic now is indeed difference, but different in a manner that Alain Badiou, at least, has signaled for us. Different as indeed different. Not merely as another phenomenal assertion of the rights afforded by justice. As I will discuss elsewhere, justice has led us to two irreconcilable manners of being there. These manners of viewing are indeed the last reduction of the parallax view Zizek gave us over a decade ago, but the problem is not the views themselves. The aggravating issue, rather, is that they are both involved in an attempt to convince the other of their own propriety through a mode of argument that assumes their particular route of viewing, historically called opinion, is based in a further omnipresent and common grounding presence called the subject of the universe. What we have found is that this is not the case. There is no common ground in the last reduction. The parameters of our problem of common method is, to paraphrase Cyndi Lauper's classic song, philosophers just want to have fun. But the cost of this fun is taking its toll upon the rest of a kind of Hegelian historical consciousness. Here, we simply dig into our postmodern heritage and ask ourselves honestly, just what is this climate that is changing? And then crash the party and ask for the party members to open their eyes and attempt at least to consider what is occurring with a sense of responsibility. Let what is responsible to our world take precedence for a moment over what is right and just, given the postmodern condition of the radical retreat of subjectivity to an alienated state of non-communication, and what that has brought to our reality. In this corner, we have an overdetermined practical sensibility attempting to power its way through a methodological appropriation of continental philosophical tenets largely foreign to its conceptual apparatus. And in the other corner, we have the great, underdetermined, ironic dancer of our time, who by the justice of rights uses whatever tools are available to show to his opponent what he is simply not able to view. The game is interesting and fun to watch, but indeed the question is beginning to rain down actuality upon the party. But indeed the question that is beginning to rain down actuality upon the party is framed exactly as, what is the climate that is changing? How do we act responsibly in this time of global and universal relation? We can no longer deny it. However, resonating the responsibility for deep adaptation, we should understand that we do not have an obligation to prove something that another simply is not able to hear. Everyone does not have to believe anything. We are all in this together does not mean that we must be concerned about only our own survival, nor entirely concerned with someone else's. Rather, the truth of our environment means that we engage with the truth responsibly. That is, the question is less what that means and more how we come by that meaning. The significant question for philosophy in this moment concerns what is being denied. I propose that religion can be distinguished from concerns of the spirit through the operation of offense. This is not a theological issue. I simply ask how philosophy poses itself to be able to address religion without concerning the spirit of philosophy. To say, as some recent authors have proclaimed, that theology has failed. We might inject Derrida's Heideggerian awareness. What spirit is destitute? Again, the introductory question. What the hell are we talking about? What theology? The right question here is how philosophy is excluding itself from responsibility in Gilligan's postmodern sense. I frame this issue to ability through the philosophical ground of I can, I will, I am. First off, I have always enjoyed Zizek's excellent remark about love. Love is evil, he announces. What he means by this is relevant to Gilligan's sense of responsibility. I love Zizek's poignancy. I do not love the world. In fact, I can tell you that my own personal attitude is that at times I indeed hate the world, or at least have a strong dislike of having to deal with so much nonsense. However, I do care about the world. I have concern for the world. Zizek has said, I pick out who and what I love, but who and what I care about goes beyond any ability to choose. And when I say I don't care, or it's equally absolute, I love the world, often enough I am indicating a deep psychological state which resembles a desire to be responsible, even as a will might downplay that responsibility. I submit that even as the practitioner flings weaponized ideas he only has half grasped, he has indeed, through his own paths, nonetheless given us a good critique of this postmodern religious manner, i.e., while subjectivity may indeed be infinite in its creative capacity to live in sensible yet imaginary worlds, not all such worlds are viable given the condition of the universe. In short, just because I can doesn't mean that its meaning is true. Yet to be sure, this is not to negate the post-truth true subjective meaning in the universe. Rather, it means only that there exists a real possibility of a subject of the universe which nevertheless is involved in understanding its real being as an object of the universe, which is to say, a universal object. As a counselor, I must consider then how I might treat this subject of philosophy that becomes offended at any suggestion which impinges upon its right to continually remake the world in its own image. Thank you for this opportunity. Have a wonderful day.